The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
This is Haymaker Combat Sports. Here, coming straight from the source. Only with the real, they ain't here to dress it up. Sweet science, MMA, you can get it all from us. Trust, 5 stars cause it's live. And through the fight game, we can guide ya. Slick talking, putting them in caution. Passing all the guards cause the audio is awesome. What you waiting for? Spread the word, tell a friend. This the podcast where all of the discussion ends. When they start going strike for strike, this the show that'll tell you what you seen in the fight. They ain't playing on the mic, this a welcome to the show. Warm it up for the squad, Haymaker of the bros. I'm a bow wow, you can hear it from the pros. It's Haymaker Combat Sports, time to roll.
Welcome back to Haymaker Combat Sports, powered by the Belly Up Sports Media Network. I am your host, EJ Reed, joined by my fellow host, Aaron Admire. No Steve with us right now, but he'll be joining us in a little bit. How's it going, Admire?
Good. Nice warm weekend, good weather, good fights, good announcements. Man, it was great weekend. I wish it could all be like that.
So you mentioned announcements, so I guess we could just dive right into that. What announcement jumped out to you the most?
Well, I mean, every episode we talk McGregor, and it's official. Him and Chandler, I think June 29th is what they announced. So it's finally happening. Like, we got 2 months to go. I'm not going to hold my breath. I mean, a lot of things could change. What will that be? It'll be about 9 months after they were first supposed to fight.
Did they ever have a set date for that fight, though?
I thought everybody was saying September-ish. I thought it was supposed to be in September.
You might be right. I don't remember. I know people were trying to maybe put it into Brooklyn. I might be even wrong about that. I know they were trying to target for 300 for sure. That fell through, and then they kept going back and forth with International Fight Week, and then somebody threw out the spare, but I guess they went back and settled on International Fight Week, which is happening kind of early this year. You usually see that close to the 4th of July.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I hope it happens. I'm gonna be glad to finally see Chandler get a fight instead of him sitting on hold. You know, as much as I talk bad about McGregor, I don't know if anybody else feels the same way, but glad to see him back. It brings so many eyes to the sport. And, you know, whether win or lose, he's an exciting fighter. He's a polarizing figure. It's good to see him back. The other one, Poirier, Makhachev. I mean, that's a interesting fight. I mean,
so I'm gonna save that for when we start talking about the fights and when we get Steve in there, because a lot of what happened during the card is how that fight, I guess, came to fruition. But were there any other announcements besides Islam Poirier and McGregor Chandler?
Yeah, Sean Strickland versus Paulo Costa. He's going to be fighting on UFC 303 as the co-main event, 5-rounder.
Oh, wow. You've been seeing that a lot more. I remember back in the day, 5-rounders were reserved for either main event or title fight. And I guess what broke them over that? I want to say Diaz randomly requested that a fight be 5 rounds, and it was the co-main with no belt.
So I think it was Diaz, and a lot of times the co-main event, even if it isn't a title fight, it'll go 5 rounds. I think they try to do that for most title eliminators. I have to think Sean Strickland versus Paulo Costa is a title contender fight.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, but like I said, Diaz broke that more like 2 or 3 years ago, and I guess they've been doing it more frequently. That for, like you said, the more higher profile fights that may be eliminators. That's 303. When does that happen in? What, August?
30. Let's see.
301 is next month, May. That'd be what, July, I guess.
Nope.
Right?
Okay, so 302 is
McGregor.
302 is Strickland Costa co-main. 302 is Makhachev Poirier main event. Conor
Ah,
McGregor, Michael Chandler is 303. So let's take a look at UFC 302. So Makhachev Poirier, you got Sean Strickland Costa, Nico Price, Jeremiah Wells. Not a real stacked card, but the two main fights are good on that one. Then if we jump over to UFC 303, let's see if they have any other fights added to the McGregor. Hopefully they don't go light on it just because it's a McGregor one. But
that's what happened.
303 is and McGregor Chandler is the only fight announced for 303.
What a shame.
And McGregor Chandler's at welterweight.
Yeah, McGregor has been fighting a lot more welterweight recently. I know he fought Poirier. He fought those two lightweight, but I want to say he fought Cowboy at welterweight. Fought Diaz. Those two fights at welterweight.
Yeah.
So, and I remember with Diaz, he could barely. I think he weighed under 170, but for that Donald Cerrone fight, he weighed in like a legit 170. So I guess that comes with age, but I don't know. This is the first time they actually announced the fight, but you never know with McGregor. So, I hold my breath until it gets closer to the fight. Hopefully no pullouts and no injuries, because I'm hearing that why he didn't fight on 300 was for all the media he was doing with Roadhouse. So, how that goes. But,
yeah, I mean, there's that, but it was a UFC landmark event. It was going to sell either way. So I think, they kind of held McGregor out of 300 and, they're going to get another big buy pay-per-view out of it. They didn't have to have him to sell 300.
Yeah, I mean, that sells itself. So, like you said, they probably wanted to stretch, the buys. And since McGregor could just sell anything on his own, you have him at another pay-per-view and 300 sells itself. Look at the main event they pulled. So, yeah, so I don't blame them for having McGregor, do a fight at 302, you said. So it's interesting. So we're now joined by Steve. Steve, we were just talking about the McGregor fight actually got made. And what are your thoughts on that?
This is my first time hearing it. Who is he fighting?
Michael Chandler.
UFC 303, June 29th.
Well, my opinion on that just says he has respect for Chandler for doing that, because everybody thought differently. He would go another route. I think this is an amazing fight. I think what people want. I definitely want to see it just now that it's confirmed anyway. I think we're in for a firefight, or McGregor better work on some takedown defense which he still shows he has, but definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, like I was telling Amar before you joined us, I'm gonna hold my breath because anything can happen between now and late June. So let's hope that McGregor doesn't get injured or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a big fight card that happened over this past weekend, UFC 300. Before we get into this card, how did y'all enjoy the festivities with this one?
It was awesome. I mean, the card top to bottom, it was great.
Did y'all invite people over? Y'all watch it solo?
I had my girlfriend over, her son and his girlfriend, her grandson, my son, his wife, my daughter, and
you had a packed house. Did you get a pizza or make any food or anything?
Dude, I smoked jalapeno poppers, smoked cream cheese, burgers, hot dogs. She made pasta salad, Oreo cheesecake. We went all out for it.
Word, that's what's up, man. It sounds like you had a feast over there. Well, how about you, Steve?
I had Fred and his girl. I was watching it, and I'll tell you one thing. I'm not used to it. No other card will probably until the next ones. These 300s, 400s. I couldn't find any time to run away at all, and I wasn't used to that. You know, maybe
Yeah.
I'll find a fight that I'm like, man, I'm gonna walk away in this shit, go to gas station. And I did that once, and I said, I can't do that again. You know, I got home and didn't leave again. And this was to keep your seat warm, because I didn't want to miss anything.
Yeah, I don't think I took any bathroom breaks through the whole thing. Like, I was glued to it. And, I don't know if I should announce this or not, but I didn't even sail the high seas on this one. I paid for this pay-per-view.
Hey, you're a better man than me.
You're gonna pay for one, shit, pay for this one.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, I don't blame anybody that did pay for it, because they definitely got their money's worth. But TKO's good. They got WWE and UFC. They don't need my money. They're already rich. But
And I mean, TikTok, man, TikTok's loaded. Like, as soon as it happens, boom, there's a video of it. I mean, you can almost watch it on TikTok.
yeah, I hear that. But I need to see it on a big screen. But yeah, man, I was out and about. I was day drinking with my girlfriend and her sister. So that first fight, the Figueiredo fight, I had to watch my phone, and I wasn't driving. I was in the back seat just watching that fight. And then we got back to her place in time for the second fight, and I, threw the Fire Stick on and threw it on the TV and enjoyed the rest of the fight. We ordered some wings, and it was all good. So,
Is your girlfriend a fight fan?
nah, I'm still trying to school her a little bit. How about yours?
Not really, but that's where I was going to go with this. It's so hard explaining to a non-MMA fan how big this event is or was. I was like, you don't understand. This is like my Super Bowl. Like, this big landmark event only happens like once every 8 years or whatever it is. I was like, this is the end all be all event. We have to watch start to finish, no interruptions, no anything. Like, this is it.
It's almost bigger than the Super Bowl, because it only happens once every 7 years. More so, you could compare it more so like the World Cup or the Olympics. That's how big it is. I feel like the International Fight Week, that was almost like the Super Bowl. Every year they used to put the biggest fights on there, but I feel like that shifted over to that New York card in this November now. It's more so the Super Bowl now. They usually try to stack that one, but yeah. That's a good comparison though. I don't ever know if I ever asked you, Steve, is your wife a fight fan, or at least you school her enough on it to watch it with you every now and then?
Yeah, it's like half and half. She'll know something, I'll tell her, and then say if somebody's in a not compromised, but say standing up, maybe head on the arm, she might think somebody's choked. I'm like, no, that's not. He just has his arm. So he's like, that schooling her on the way. My woman, I wouldn't say most, but sometimes they think like somebody on the bottom doing bottom hits. He's hitting me in the face like that. We know that's not doing no damage, but these are things we have to explain.
Oh yeah, for sure. But sounds like we all had a nice watching experience. But let's jump into this actual card, fellas. Landmark event, UFC 300 from Las Vegas. I'm sure the tickets for this was insane, because you actually saw pretty much the whole, I don't know about the whole, but a lot of the arena filled up for the early prelims. That's something you don't see. So the gravity of this event when that happens. But let's talk about the curtain jerker fight that could have main evented one of those random fight night Apex cards. Definitely. We had Davison Figueiredo defeating Cody Garbrandt by submission in the second round. This was in the bantamweight division. All three of us chose Figueiredo. So in the first round, this one, not a lot of volume from either guys. They were kind of feeling each other out. Then Figueiredo got Garbrandt down in that second round, and he threatened that arm triangle, but he couldn't get it. And then in the scramble, he was able to get him back down and eventually choke him out. What were your thoughts on this one, Admire?
Yeah, a lot of filling out first round. I think Cody Garbrandt gave a lot of respect to Figueiredo, and usually you can see Cody rushing in, throwing a lot of punches. Usually he's a higher volume guy. I just noticed that he had a lot more respect this fight. Cody did land a couple big shots, and I was like, oh man, like first fight out of the gate, like my bets are going to be busted. But, Figueiredo was able to secure the submission. He looked good. I don't think it's anything against Cody losing to somebody that's, very good. So no harm, no foul there. I hope they go on and see a lot of fights from both of them.
Steve?
I think Figueiredo, he looks very good at bantamweight. Of course, you can get a championship where you can, but probably the weight he should have been at all along. Especially we know Cody is a very is a strong bantamweight in the way he got him down multiple times and keeping up with his strength, grappling, and also can hold his own weight for striking. I think Cody was, like Admire said, was very still in the mode of overcoming what made him lost, is getting to them firefights, which I think he might be on the other side of that and doesn't know how to balance it out. And I think you might get results of this to where Figueiredo gets a submission. And I can't recall any time Garbrandt's been in a compromised position on the ground unless he's been hurt, if I'm not mistaken. I like to get your opinion with that, but if he's getting submitted by Figueiredo coming up from flyweight, and I hate to, because Cody Garbrandt has a perfect style for striking. I love, sort of like what we saw later on in the night, what he gives. But when you have a wrong matchup, I mean, how much of an MMA fighter are you if you can't overcome these same things you can't overcome? To me, hopefully, maybe one more for the go so he can announce his retirement, but I think it may be done for him.
So, to your question about his ground prowess, I don't know. I've watched a lot of Garbrandt fights. I can't remember about like his prowess on the ground or not. If anybody's like compromised and past experience where he's got compromised, I don't know if you could expound on that a little more, Admire.
Yeah, I can't recall him ever really being handled on the ground. This was his first submission loss. So, I mean, he's never been submitted, but he does have a good wrestling background, and I think he's always kept up on the ground, anytime that it's gone there, but most of his fights have been standing up.
Yeah, I mean, not to take anything away from Figueiredo, but because Cody's a former bantamweight champion, but Garbrandt is unranked and still is after this fight. So do y'all think Figueiredo's a real contender at bantamweight?
I don't know if beating Cody Garbrandt makes you a real contender, but just from the style Figueiredo had and what I've seen being able to handle a former, yeah, I think, Figueiredo's beat Moreno before, and Moreno, one of the best to ever do it.
But Moreno's a flyweight, though.
Right. But I want to see more out of Figueiredo. I want to see him, go against a ranked person and see how he really does.
Steve?
I can say that because although Cody Garbrandt, I think this was a dangerous fight for Figueiredo. But as far as the ranking side, I guess we have to take that seriously.
Yeah.
So,
like Admire says, I think you got to give him a top 10 guy, see if he can sink or swim, and then we'll come back and assess it after that. But he looked good against the competition they gave him. And I mean, Garbrandt is still young. I wouldn't say for him to one more fight retire, but just throw him against unranked people for a while and see if he could have like a little resurgence, because we've seen fighters have resurgence mid to late 20s before, and he's still in his early 30s. So I don't know. I don't know what you think about that, Admire.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's just kind of one of them debates. Like, is he too old? What's the move? And that's why I say just one more, see what happens.
Yeah, just take it one fight at a time. But let's jump into this next fight. At lightweight, we had Bobby Green defeating Jim Miller by unanimous decision. I had Bobby Green, and my Steve had Jim Miller. So it was just a striking clinic by Green. He was just picking him apart and just popping him and just made him bleed. And one judge had it 2 to 10 to 8 rounds for Green, and the other judge had it 1 10 to 8 round. I didn't realize how lopsided it was, but Admire, what are your thoughts?
Every time I bet against Bobby Green, he shows up. The striking was there for him. He landed 187 total strikes to Jim Miller's 58. So that's a lot. That's a big disparity. Jim Miller has 20 wins by submission. Like, he didn't even shoot takedowns. He didn't do anything. I think Bobby Green really hurt him just in the opening of the fight. And I don't know if it's Jim Miller stubborn, but he played that game. He stood in front of him trading, and that was just the wrong strategy. Bobby Green is a great boxer. He does have great striking. And I think we've seen Jim Miller do that before, where he just kind of gets pulled into, playing the other person's game, and he shouldn't do that. I don't know if age has anything to do with it. Jim Miller is 40. He has a lot of fights under his belt. But, yeah, there's a lot of things that I think he could have done differently. I'm not there. I'm not a fighter. I'm not a coach. But after that first round getting kind of picked apart, he should have changed his game plan. But he didn't. But, props to Bobby Green. He bounced back. He was coming off that loss where he was knocked out himself by Jalen Turner. And, it looks like he wasn't phased. He was willing to stand there. He ate a bunch of punches from Jim Miller. So, Bobby Green's just a guy that, he's a veteran. I don't know if we want to give him gatekeeper status, but he's always going to be there, and he's always a gamer.
I think it's safe to say he's gatekeeper status. But Steve, what were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, amazing win for Bobby Green. Like you said, just popped the fight. For real, didn't time Jim Miller tried to do anything graphic, never really was successful. I'm trying to recollect if I don't even think he even got a takedown.
I can't remember. I don't think so.
Yeah, everything's fuzzy after all the fights, but
no, Jim Miller did not even attempt to take down, but Bobby Green did get one takedown.
And see, this is where I thought Jim Miller would win, because I would not think Jim Miller would even stand up with Bobby Green. And that's what happened. And like you said, I don't know if it's a rather prove a point, because we know that Jim Miller can mix it up, but who knows? Maybe he tried an exchange and thought he was too strong. I don't know, but like I said, hats off to Bobby Green.
Yeah. So Jim Miller fought at 100, fought at UFC 200, now 300. Mission accomplished. Is it just time for him to hang it up?
Yeah, I mean, he's done everything, in the sport. He's made it up real close to the top. He's fought everybody, he's unscathed, as far as, popping dirty or anything like that. I mean, he's had a great career, start a gym, if he already doesn't, he probably already does, but it's, like you just said, 100, 200, 300, hang it up.
I agree. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, he had a long career, made 3. And what is this? How many did he win out of 3? 2 out of 3?
He won at 100 and 200.
So 2 out of 3? Yep. That's pretty good. And pretty sure he ain't got 7 or 8 more years till the next one.
Nah.
I think he had a good career. I mean, I would say, I think he was on a winning streak before this fight. Was he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he had won 2 in a row.
So I would say if he would want to do one more out to like a retirement fight,
Mhm.
yeah. But if he decides to retire, I mean, he had a long career, was able to be obviously get his bid in to Dana, so he's respected to be interjected in 3 of them. I think he's accomplished what he can.
Yeah, he's been in the UFC for 16 years.
That's
Long
crazy.
time.
He was around before a lot of these fans have been alive. A lot of the younger fans. So
Yeah, and
yeah.
I mean, if you look at some of his wins, I mean, he's beat Donald Cerrone, Clay Guida, Thiago Alves, Joe Lozon, Takanori Gomi, Danny Castillo, Melvin Gillard, if you remember him. He beat Charles Oliveira a long time ago. Dwayne Ludwig. Like, he's got a lot of big name wins.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said, he's done it all. He has nothing else to prove. I mean, he hadn't won a title, but that's rare for anyone to win a title. But as far as just being an entertaining fighter, and like you said, he never popped. So it's nothing else for him to prove. If he does want to do a retirement fight, I'd be all for it. Hopefully, a fighter closer to his age. But if he doesn't, if he just wants to, I guess I can't really call it ride into the sunset because he lost. But if he just wants to hang it up, and I wouldn't be opposed to that either. He didn't put his gloves in the middle of the cage, so he probably thinks he has more left in the tank. But we'll see how that plays out. But let's move to this next fight in the women's strawweight division. We had Jessica Andrade defeating Marina Rodriguez by split decision. I had Andrade, and y'all two had Rodriguez. So in this fight, Andrade just looked like she was the more aggressive fighter. It looks like she had more power to her, and Rodriguez really couldn't find a way in. And so I think that's where I thought it was the unanimous decisions, but the judge called it split. I thought Andrade was the one that's pushing the pace. What you thought about this, Admire?
Yeah, same thing. Andrade just seemed like the bigger, faster, stronger, more skilled fighter of the night. I did take Rodriguez, on our picks, and I did bet her. And I was just like, wow, man, she's getting schooled. Like, she couldn't just get anything going. And then when they read the scorecards, I was like, this is what we talked about. That judge should have to explain awarding her that win, because there's no department in my mind, and from what I saw, that she won. She did not win the striking. She got taken down. She didn't have control. Like, what did that judge see that I did not? And if they switch to doing that, making judges explain, it's helping educate fans. Like me, I'm like, did I miss something? Obviously not. 2 other judges went the other way, but that judge needs to be held accountable and explain what he's seen. He, like, blind.
Yeah, I don't know what that judge was seeing. What were your thoughts, Steve?
Yeah, this is one of the few fights like I'm literally trying to remember it, and it's all fuzzy. But I say I can't remember it enough to even, notice the discrepancy with Admire's pulling up as far as the judge.
Yeah, but I'm with you, Admire. They should have to explain like what they're seeing in it to give Rodriguez 2 rounds, because I'm reading the decision right now, and 29, 28. Yeah, so the judge that called it for her gave Rodriguez 2 rounds. I don't know how he saw that, but
Does it say which 2 rounds?
it doesn't specify which 2 rounds.
Okay.
He just gave 28, 29 for Rodriguez. What was that, Steve?
To keep it consistent, what do y'all think about the best 2 out of 3 judges to where, and that's still kind of iffy. Like if some judge was way off, but the 2 judges were consistent at least by 1, or change the judge's card that's off to the 2 that had it right. Does that make sense? Or closer to the decision?
I mean, I don't know, man. Like, I almost think that they need to make another level of the scorecards. Like, the judge should have to say, okay, I'm giving striking to Andrade. I'm giving control to Andrade. I'm giving this to Rodriguez. And that judge should have to score for Andrade for that. Like, they should have to break it down even further, not just score the round as a whole. Tell us why you scored that. The only thing I can see with Rodriguez getting a nod on one round is she had a submission attempt. You shouldn't get awarded for a submission attempt. We talked about this before. If you don't go nowhere with it, what did it really achieve?
Yeah, I agree. I don't know how they'd be able to make it unified at this point. I think it's just too much money involved for them to fix it. But I don't know. It's annoying. I like to see them fix it. And we've been beating this over the head many times on past shows. So hopefully something will happen. Hopefully in the next 10 years or so. I don't see anything happening soon. But it is what it is, I guess, at this point. But let's jump into this next fight, fellas. In the lightweight division, we had Renato Moicano defeating Jalen Turner by TKO in the second round. And this fight is where keeping it real goes wrong.
Yeah, I remember I messaged you during this fight.
The last 20 seconds, Jalen Turner with a left hook, he dropped Moicano, walked off. Like, I think he even threw his hands in the air. I might be mistaken. Ref didn't call it off, and Moicano popped right back up and was able to get through the rest of the round. Then round 2, a double leg by Moicano in the round. Was able to ground and pound and get Turner out of there. Adam, I'll let you kick this one off.
Yeah, I mean, exactly what you just said happened. I mean, the fight goes until the ref stops it, and the ref did not stop it. Just because you hit somebody and drop them, it doesn't mean they're out. I mean, and Moicano proved that he wasn't out. He still had his bearings about him. This is another fight. I had Jalen Turner, and I was celebrating with him. I was like, all right, my win streak starts now. And
all 3 of us had Turner, but your win streak didn't start, I guess, at this one, huh?
It did not start at this one. I mean, bad on him. I mean, it's almost the shame of it. He has to not talk shit or do anything because anybody could throw that right back in his face. When keeping it real goes wrong.
Steve?
Yeah, I was rooting for him that first round. Even in the grappling attempts that I think there was a few in the first round, Turner was able to shrug him off. And then he hit him with that. And when he didn't take advantage of him knocking him down, I was like, man, watch something happen. And I swear the second round, when it happened to him, I was like, that's what you get. Because like we said, we were all going for Jalen Turner. And matter of fact, a lot of these fights turned out to like that with me, but we'll talk about that. Yeah, I think this is a lesson he needs to learn. And this is where, in the words of Jorge Masvidal, man, it's super necessary. You got to get the fights out. We've seen people wake up from getting hit in the ground, and bounce right back up. And Amari Kano, that just shows how much of a beast he is. And although I picked over him, he's one of those fighters that are special and entertains the crowd with this style alone. And like I said, lesson learned to Turner.
So, I don't know if you have it in front of you. How old is Turner?
I know his height. Let me get his age. Because I was telling everybody, I was like, watch this dude. He's 155, 6'3". He is 28 years old.
Okay, so he's definitely in that age. He's like a generation of the TikTok era. And that may have come back to bite him in the ass because I think he was looking for the viral clip, the walk-off, and fucked around and found out because Moicano popped right back up, and then he ended up losing the fight. This is gonna be on every like blooper reel, every like YouTube video highlighting past fights of when keeping it real goes wrong, video types like that. So I don't know. He's got to be kicking himself in the ass after watching that back.
Right. If he would have followed it up, I mean, he had it in the bag, man. So, and unfortunately, that makes he lost 3 of his last 4. That all because he wanted to get that highlight, and he will show up on one of those on my TikTok, on my algorithm. I get where cocky fighters lose all the time, and that's going to start showing up.
Exactly. Did y'all see Moicano's post-fight interview with Rogan?
No, I did not listen to the post-fight.
Okay, I guess I'll give y'all a gist of it. I mean, he's got as far as English being his second language, he's promoting himself in there, man. He was going crazy on the mic.
Is he the one that kept talking and talking?
Yeah, he asked Rogan to be on his podcast, and I think.
Didn't Moicano say that he now has the top podcast or some shit?
Yeah. So what do y'all think? Y'all think he has a little star power to make a push in the lightweight division, as far as his able to promote himself? Because I don't know his ranking. Was he even ranked?
I don't know if he was ranked, but he's got some decent wins on his list. I think the UFC is kind of going to hit this patch where they need but louder fighters. For a while, Conor got loud, then you had Tony Ferguson and all those guys getting loud, and I think it's kind of calmed back down. So I think the UFC needs guys like him to kind of come out and do that.
I mean, Turner was ranked, so you have to. Yeah, so he's number 10 now. I mean, top 10, and like you said, you need more boisterous guys. So y'all see the UFC pushing this guy a little bit since he knows his way around the mic.
Yeah, and he knows how to do the crowd. He had the big thing. First of all, I love America. I love the Constitution. I love the First Amendment. I want to carry fucking guns, and I love private property, all that shit. I mean, I think he won over a lot of people with that.
Steve?
Definitely. He showed that he showed what I think Dana been wanting to promote, and which morally I think he tells people to go out there and use that mic to promote yourself. But I think there's maybe a resurgence of maybe like, hey, you guys gotta make it your own. Like, I give you the platform, you guys gotta say it on the mic, and he's definitely doing it. We only have a few of these people. You saw all through this card. Bobby Green tried to grab his moment, if we remember, on the mic. I think Bobby Green called somebody out. I just can't remember. Somebody that's known.
Did he call Pimblett?
Yeah, that's who it was. I think that was a good call out.
I like that.
I might be making. I know he's called Pimblett before. I don't know if he did this past fight. I might be making that up, but
somebody called out Patty. I think it was him. Yeah.
We'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I think they should definitely push Moicano though, and we'll see how his fight play out from here out, and see how they match him up. Now that he's in that top 10, it's go time. That was it for the early prelims. Let's jump into the normal prelims. The one that kicked this one off was in the featherweight division. Diego Lopez defeated Sodiq Yusuff by TKO in the first round. Both me and Admire had Lopez, and Steve had Yusuff. And Lopez made quick work of him. I saw this playing out like this. Dropped him with that uppercut. Yusuff got back up and got dropped with another uppercut and finished off. Like I said, Lopez made quick work of him. What were your thoughts on this one, Admire?
Yeah, 3 finishes in a row for Lopez. I think that the kid is just developing with every fight. watching the fight, I was like, man, this kid is young. He's making a name for himself with 3 finishes in a row. He's 29. He's been around for a little bit. I thought for some reason that he was younger, but I see him, making it up towards the top of the featherweight division. Looked really good. I think his only loss in the UFC was to Mavsar. So not a big, thing to hold against him, but I want to see more of the kid. He looked really good. And Yusuf is not, just a can off the streets. He's a really good fighter. So it was a good win.
Steve?
I would say that. Although I would think that would be his first test of a good fighter, because Yusuf at least had Caceres, which is a hardened veteran in the game. Although Caceres hasn't getting to the height, it's still a hard fight. Lost against Barboza, so not so much of extra experience or wins. So I can see Lopez could get this win, although Yusuf is, like you said, is no joke. I would like to see more, because he's Sadiq is 15, so I can see him playing around with somebody in between 10 and 15. And if it's in between 10 and 15, after that, get him in the top 10 or somebody under that, under 10.
I agree with that. Yeah, like Admire said, even though Lopez isn't super young, I mean, featherweight division is kind of open. Now that Volkanovski lost. So you got Ilio Tapira, he's the champion. And we might know his next opponent. We might not. We'll get into that when we talk about the main card. But yeah, I'm excited to see where this Lopez kid goes after this one. But let's move on to the next fight. In the women's bantamweight division, we had the debuting Kayla Harrison defeating Holly Holm by submission, rear naked choke in the second round. I had Harrison, Admire Steve had Holly Holm. Holly Holm, I don't know why she decided to want to try to grapple with Harrison, but that was a bad idea. Harrison just looked a lot more powerful than her, was able to do what she wanted. And I was impressed how Harrison was able to use her striking to get on the inside. You saw her throw some head kicks in there as well to get into the grappling, and she was able to use that judo, control Holly Holm on the ground most of that first round, ground and pound, and then able to do more of the same in the second round and able to get that submission eventually. And what were your thoughts on this one, Admire?
Yeah, I was wrong, but officially on my parlay, I did put Kayla Harrison. I just, with them odds, had to. But Kayla Harrison looked really good. She was big. She was aggressive. She has fought the PFL before, but being on the main stage of the UFC landmark event, she didn't have any of them, any stage fright. She got right after it. Holly Holm, I don't know what. I don't know if she was trying to catch her off guard and grapple with her, but not a great showing for Holly Holm. For me, just get Kayla Harrison against Raquel Pennington. Like, just book it. Like, that's the fight that everybody wants to see now. I think Kayla Harrison can be the reigning champ for as long as she wants to. She's, to me, bigger, stronger, faster, younger version of Ronda Rousey.
That's a spot on comparison. Before we talk about Rocky Pennington and Steve, what were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it was pretty good. First, when things were fresh, and then she got a takedown on Harrison. Like, this is like sort of looking.
Well, so she tried to take Harrison down. Harrison was able to reverse it, take her down, but when they were on there, Holm rolled around on the ground and was able to get that top. So it wasn't really a takedown by Holm, but Holm was able to get into advantageous position.
Hey, for the record, in my mind, it was a takedown for Holm too. I thought she landed the takedown, even though it was mixed around.
Yeah.
And she did that. So I was like, oh, there may be some hope. But the more she tried more into her game plan and through the rounds, it was looking worse and worse. I was like, it's not looking good. And I swear, been not in the best shape now, and have been in good shape. That woman has better back muscles than me. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, she's
Oh, and did you hear Joe Rogan's comparison?
Wrong.
he said Vitor Belfort. I mean, Joe Rogan, I guess, is uncancelable, but I'm surprised he's not going to get some blowback to compare her
That's
to
what
a
he
man.
said.
Yeah, he said he had back muscle because I rewatched it today. He said he had back muscles like Vitor Belfort.
I mean, I guess he's specifically talking about the muscles. I mean, I can see how it can be offensive, but hey, she does have muscles better than men and better than mine. Hey, that's a compliment I was giving him.
Yeah. And I mean, her last fight was at like 150 pounds, I think.
Yeah.
And she cut all the way down. And, you know, my worry going in when we made our predictions was I didn't think she'd be able to make weight because she's very big and full of muscles. And the weigh-in, you know, she kind of reminded me of that one picture of McGregor. She was just bones, but she filled out real good for fight night. That's going to be a problem, you know, even though the women's bantamweight is a heavier division, she's still going to have a size advantage, I believe, over everyone that she ends up fighting.
Yeah, and ever since Amanda Nunes left, it's been a void in that division as far as like star power and kind of talent, because that used to be like the glamour division as far as women, especially with Rousey being there, and that's kind of moved to strawweight. So if they do it right, they can market her as a star. She's a single mom of adopted children, and if they do it right, they could make a star outside of the octagon with her as well. But like Amar said, I mean, I don't see anybody beating her in this division really. And I wanted to get back to the Rocky Pennington thing. I think they said Rocky Pennington is injured right now, and I think Harrison's been pushing to make the interim title fight. So do y'all think UFC should make an interim title fight or just wait for Pennington to get healthy?
Who would you put Harrison against? Pena, since she's number one?
Yeah, just do her and Juliana. You know, Juliana talks a lot of trash, hasn't always been able to back it up. Well, I mean, I think Juliana hasn't lost that many times. She just couldn't back it up at one time against Nunes in that rematch, but she could talk.
Yeah,
trash.
but I mean, that fight makes sense, though. I mean, you know, Pena has a win over Nunes, Sarah McMahon, you know, so she's been up towards the top for quite a while. I mean, make that fight now, do an interim fight, and you know, strike while the iron's hot. You know, Kayla Harrison's name is in the headlines still. We're doing a post show right now. We're talking about her. Everybody's coming off the weekend. Just hurry up and announce interim title fight, UFC 304.
Yeah, I wouldn't be mad at that. And yeah, like you said, strike while iron's hot. Harrison didn't take any damage in that fight. If she did, it was minimal. Holly Holm didn't really do anything. So yeah.
Home landed 7 strikes. I think Harrison's fine.
Yeah, that's awful. And yeah, I mean, I was impressed. But let's move on to this next one, fellas. In the featherweight division, we had Aljamain Sterling defeating Calvin Kattar by unanimous decision. All three of us had Sterling, and Sterling just went to his bread and butter, his grappling, and was able just to outwork Kattar in this one. What were your thoughts on this one, Amar?
Yeah, I mean, Sterling just owned this fight. Like I forget how many takedowns he hit, but I'm guessing it was like 8, probably 8 or 9, and it was complete domination. Kattar couldn't really do anything, and you know, Cater's the more natural featherweight. You know, typically you don't see the smaller guy come up and really manhandle somebody like that, but it just shows how good Sterling is. You know, as I'm watching the fight, I'm like, why couldn't Sterling do this to Sean O'Malley? Why couldn't he just take him down and hold him? But, you know, Sterling looked great to me. I think that he should do a couple more fights here at featherweight, you know, maybe bounce between featherweight, bantamweight, and just see what he can do.
Yeah, I agree with that. What are your thoughts, Steve, on this one?
Definitely, he dominated this fight. Like the commentation said, like I even noticed that he looks more filled out and bigger, which probably is the factor why he can was able to probably have a extra significant boost to even control somebody at bantamweight. Um, didn't think he would do it this good, especially with Calvin Cater. Uh, I'm trying to recollect who tested Calvin Cater's ground game to assess this more, but I have to think of that later. But definitely, I didn't expect Aljamain as a bantamweight to dominate somebody at that weight at all. And like you said, he uses bread and butter. People might not like him for his showmanship of
Yeah.
entertaining the crowd, but it's MMA and he gets the job done.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you want to get your win bonus. So he jumped into the number 8 position at featherweight. And Admire touched on it earlier. Looks like he has a future in this division. I just think Emmett is ranked ahead of him, and Arnold Allen. I don't know if those guys got fights already booked, but if not, then those two would be good opponents to put him against. Emmett is a striker, so it'd be like a striker versus grappling. But I don't have in front of me. Emmett might have a fight, but I wouldn't be opposed to that. But yeah, Sterling looked good, and everybody always talk about how big he was at bantamweight. I guess it was true because he fit in right there in there and was able to do what he wanted with Cater. So hats off to Aljamain Sterling. But let's talk about this next fight, fellas. The featured fight on the prelim card at light heavyweight, we had former champion Yuri Prochazka defeating Alexander Rakic by TKO in the second round. And all three of us had Prochazka winning. And that first round wasn't looking too good for Prochazka. Rakic was gathering there and he's working those leg kicks. Like I thought he was gonna take his leg out for a second because he was laboring that kick that leg as far as we're talking about Prochazka. And then even later on in that round, he used the leg kicks to start going up top and got some good strike. But about a minute left, I guess a light bulb turned on in Prochazka and he started making it a firefight in like that last minute of the first round. Then going into the second round, the firefight continued and it just ended up being whoever landed the first. And Prochazka was able to land and able to get Rakic out there with that grounded pound or the TKO. What are your thoughts on this one, Admire?
Yeah, I had Yuri on this fight. And it wasn't looking good first round. Alexander was landing a lot of good shots. He had me really scared. Jerry has made it to the top. He just fought Alex, for the light heavyweight. Now, I think this is going to propel him back up maybe in the talks of another one. But Jerry's style, that he likes to call it samurai, it's really a karate style. I don't think it's built for longevity. It kind of reminds me of Lyoto Machida. It's kind of hard to figure out for a little bit, but once somebody figures it out, everybody after that can watch the tape and kind of figure you out. He keeps his hands low. He's susceptible to leg kicks. He had to switch his stance many times. I don't know what his longevity would be. And I think if you throw him back in against Alex, I think Alex is going to chop his legs down and then, catch him. So good fight. As far as Alexander, I mean, it was great. He was doing good. I'd like to see more of his fights.
Steve?
Definitely, I was on my toes on this one. Like you said, that first round was a struggle of figuring Rakic out, but Jiri, it seems like his style, he thrives off of downloading in the moment, and he progresses off those downloading with these close to inches to his face punches, which I was like, oh shit, I'm like, somebody's out to get knocked out. But you see him moving his head, faking out, going forward, throwing that front teep kick, and you see him thriving off the momentum of what's in front of him because he was having problems. But as you see he was gaining his momentum based off of even getting hit, close to hit, get his legs kicked out from him. Like you said, a light bulb went off from even downloading what was in front of him. If that sort of makes sense. And I think Jerry's always been a fight like that. I think he could have done that with Alex Pereira if he would have got off faster, but you've seen him do it in this one. And even saying about Alex Pereira, I was looking at Ray Keek, and I'm like, Ray Keek looks bigger and thicker. And the way he's throwing these punches, I'm like, I was thinking Jerry's going to get knocked out if he wasn't careful because Ray Keek looked significantly bigger than Pereira. But like I said, Jerry surprises us, and he's now one of my favorite fighters.
Yeah, Yuri showed the spirit of a warrior in there. Was able to dig deep and get back into the fight and end up getting the finish. So we'll talk about Hill when we talk about the main event, but Hill's calling out Yuri. I don't know. Would that make sense for the next fight for Yuri to have?
To me, it does. I want to see that fight, but I think Yuri's going to be, I just beat, Rakic. That was number 5. Yuri's still number 1 contender. I don't know. I on paper, I don't think it makes sense, but in my mind, I want to see that fight.
I mean, you said on paper it doesn't make sense, or it does make sense?
I don't think so. I mean,
I
think it does.
I think on paper it probably does make sense because both Hill and Yuri just got knocked out by Pereira, so have both of them fight each other to see who could get back up there. Go ahead, Steve.
And it was supposed to happen anyway before the injury.
That too. So
yeah, but you got that Magomed Ankalaev up there. He's ranked higher than Hill now. What do you do with him?
Have him sit on the bench or have him go up against Rakic?
Well, I mean, Ankalaev hasn't fought Hill or Jerry.
Nah, I say have Hill and Yuri fight it out.
I mean, I like the fight. I want to see it for sure. I mean, even that could headline like a fight night card.
Definitely could headline a fight night card. It could co-main event one of these pay-per-views too. So, yeah. So they, the matchmakers got their hands full of figuring out what they do next in the top of the light heavyweight division. But let's move on to this main card, fellas. To kick this one off, we had highly hyped Bo Nickel at middleweight defeating Cody Brundage by submission, rear naked choke in the second round. All three of us had Nickel. Nickel pretty much did what he wanted to do as far as the wrestling goes, and when he got him down there, it was ground and pound as well in both of the rounds, and he was able to finish him off in the second round. And Bo Nickel did what he needed to do. What are your thoughts on this one, Amar?
Well, nobody's been higher on Bo Nickel than me. And for me, I think this fight showed more about Brundage than Bo Nickel. Bo Nickel got hit with a couple good shots, and he didn't look comfortable taking punches. Of course, we knew he was going to go for the takedown. He got the submission win. Not a lot of, in the post-fight, I think he called out Anthony Hernandez, said he would like to fight maybe him or somebody. I don't know, man. I hope it's not true, but I could see Bo Nickel kind of really coming to a halt once he gets into that top 15, kind of like a Sage Northcutt. I said it on the pre-show. We kind of find out who's going to make it and who doesn't. I'm not taking anything from Bo Nickel's win, but he just didn't seem to look as good. And if you're going against a guy that's 10-5 like Brundage, and you couldn't easily handle him like you have everybody else, I think that he might struggle. Even if he beats somebody in the top 10 to 15, once he gets in that top 10, I don't know if he survives.
I think it's too soon to tell with that. Steve, what were your thoughts on this?
That's what I would say. I mean, hopefully, possibly this was just an off rhythm night. The way he's promoted it, and what I thought, you know, he's just gonna straight up dominate and not saying he didn't dominate, but it's more of like what a Khabib does or Islam, just straight up, just take you down, can't get up. And Brundage, like Admir said, we saw a lot from Brundage from a 10-5 fighter, getting out of this elite wrestler's holds on the ground and actually giving up a fight. There's a few times I thought, oh, this is about to be over with a rear naked. How many times he got a hold of his neck and he got out of it? Maybe the wrestling repertoire has to get up with his jiu-jitsu. Maybe that's what his problem was. But to me, the way they were promoting, I thought Bo Nickel would dominate this fight more, although he did a good job.
So going back to your point, Admire, Brundage, he landed a few shots, but it wasn't any point in that fight where I'm like, Nickel's in trouble. I mean, I felt like Nickel ate him pretty well, and Nickel did what, he's known for it with the wrestling. And after the fight, Nickel wasn't impressed by his own performance because he gave himself a thumbs down. I think he might have been a little bit harsh on himself. But as far as his future, you were saying that he shouldn't go against the top 15?
Yeah, I think he should, but I think, for me in my head, in the top 15, I want to see. I think he's probably going to struggle a little bit, but I think in the top 10, just from that fight, he might struggle a little bit. He did dominate that fight, but when you're so used to seeing somebody just completely dominate, like no chance, seeing a guy actually kind of put up a fight, to me, in my opinion, he looked kind of uneasy getting punched a couple times. So I don't know what somebody with more power and better striking, how he's going to face that adversity. I'm still on the Bo Nickel train, but it just slowed down a little bit after that one. Could have been an off night. Could have been, he is used to fighting on the prelims, I believe. I don't think he's ever been on the main card. And then he's on the main card of event of, the last few years. So, I mean, it is a lot of pressure, but, it's just going to be interesting to see what happens next.
Definitely. I think you throw another unranked fighter at him and see how he does there. Like, it's no reason to really rush him. I mean, he's not super young, but he's not old. So throw another unranked fighter at him. Then if he dominates that, then throw like somebody 15 through 13 at him.
Well, I mean, unranked fighters, what do you think about like Chris Weidman? That brings a lot of eyes to the fight. It's somebody out of the top 15.
Nah. Because I mean, he beats Weidman. People just chalk it up to him beating an old dude that's past his prime. Somebody who just fought Chris Curtis, is he still ranked after fighting last weekend or the weekend before last?
Chris Curtis right at number 15. I think that's an excellent fight.
Have them face him and then see what happens after that. But we'll keep our eye on Bo Nickel. Clearly, it's a fighter that UFC wants to push hard, and he's got a lot of hype. But we'll see how he progresses after this one. Let's move on to the next one, fellas. In the lightweight division, we had Arman Tsarukyan defeating Charles Oliveira by split decision. Steve had Arman Tsarukyan, me and Admire had Charles Oliveira. So with this fight, Oliveira looked good on the feet and threatened to end the fight with that guillotine. He couldn't secure it. And then Oliveira did that illegal kick, and that's where things changed. And Tsarukyan pretty much took over from there and able to grind out that win. What were your thoughts on this one, Admire?
Yeah, Tsarukyan looked great. This is one of the only Oliveira fights where he looked better on the feet than on the ground. It was almost a case of when keeping it real goes wrong again. towards the end of the fight, he thought he had that choke there, but I don't know how tight it was because he didn't get the tap, but he had thought he did enough to win.
Sticking his
And
tongue out and
yeah, and Sarukian, I think, just dominated the fight everywhere it went. He had, the takedowns and the control. He had the edge on the striking. I just, in recent memory, I don't remember Oliveira not just outclassing everybody except for, the big loss that he had. I'm used to seeing a better version of Oliveira. Sarukian looks great. I'm ready to see him, move up and just go for it all.
Steve?
Yeah, I seen every sign that Charles Oliveira, where I seen him before, a great fighter. But like I've been saying in past ones, I see something in Saryuki to where he can grapple in it. And I just remember him having Islam being promoted as Khabib's cousin and stuff. And when he had his fight with him, I knew he was special the way they were transitioning and reversing and Saryukin is a problem. And I knew that would show in this fight. And I don't think it's Oliveira, had anything wrong with this game. I think we have an up-and-comer that's going to challenge anybody for the belt. I think Islam.
Yeah, and I mean, Islam beat him like 5 years ago. And I mean, Islam's Islam. He's the same fighter. Mm-hmm. But I think, Islam's got a little better. But Sarukian, I think, is a completely different fighter. And I think it's going to be a great fight. I mean, that's the only fight to make.
So you're saying what's the only fight to make, Amar?
Well, I mean, I don't want to try to predict the future, but, I think Islam's going to be the champ after his next fight. So, I mean, Sarukian.
Oh, so you're jumping ahead. So let's put that on the back burner and let's talk about this next fight, which could be a candidate for a knockout of the year. In the lightweight division, we had Max Holloway defeating Justin Gaethje by knockout in the 5th round. So Holloway just looked dominant. I think he won all 5 rounds. He was schooling Gaethje on the feet. And you think, I mean, what I think was the turning point was when he did that spinning kick to his nose, Gaethje's nose, and appeared to break his nose. Yeah. But did whatever he wanted to. And what's going to live in UFC lore from here on out with 20 seconds left in the fight, maybe even 10. Holloway pointed to the middle of the ring and said, "Let's throw down." They went in there like a movie or like some type of Rocky movie or something like that, and just went at it and stand and bang. And with 1 second left, Holloway was able to sleep Gaethje. And like I said, that'll go down as probably knockout of the year or be in contention for it. I don't think it'll be in contention for a fight of the year because it's pretty one-sided in my opinion. All 3 of us had Gaethje going in, and I think it was pretty much a pick 'em. I mean, Admire didn't think Holloway had a chance. Even in the pre-show, I said Gaethje will win this one, but I said if Holloway wins, he's going to have to, just outstrike him and go to a decision. And that was pretty much was about to happen until they decided to do that firefight at the end. But I'll start off with you, Admire. What are your thoughts of this one?
Yeah, it was complete domination by Max. I've never seen Gaethje just kind of not be able to, stand and trade in the beginning. Like you said, that back kick that Max did, I think it was at the end of the 1st round. So Gaethje, was dripping blood and having breathing problems the whole fight. It's not going to go down as fight of the year. It's probably not going to make knockout of the year. But to me, this is that was the greatest moment in UFC history because of just the situation. It was, I keep saying, landmark event. but Max could have coasted to that win easily. He could have ran. He could have kept him at bay the last 20, 10 seconds, whatever. But he decided to do what I don't think anybody else would have done. And he's done it before. He put his whole fight on the line to just stand there and trade and put on a show and close it out with 1 second left. I mean, if you just think about what the UFC, how it was created, it's a test of all the different skills. What's the best skill? Who's the baddest man? They were fighting for the BMF title. Everything just surrounding it, to me, makes that the greatest moment in UFC history. It was just insane.
Definitely insane. Steve, what are your thoughts?
Man, I think a few people said it. This is the fight that probably got me dead until I woke up until later on in the fights. This got me on my feet. Didn't expect it. Had me screaming. But about the fight, I thought Gaethje could engage more and really wasn't able to hit Holloway like we thought he would, like we seen him Tony Ferguson, whatever. And what I thought was honorable about Max Holloway is not only told him to stay in the middle because he was winning. To me, that's like, I'll give you a chance to win. So, you know what I'm saying? You can possibly knock me out. So not only he gave him a chance, and I think that happened with Holloway. What did he do that with? Ricardo Lamas?
Yeah, it was the first one he did it with Lamas, and then he did it with somebody else.
Yeah. And third time's a charm, isn't it? Not only he asked him and then during the decision, he knocked him out. So almost did Gaethje a favor to where he made him live by the sword and he died by the sword, and it all went out with a bang. And I think that helped both of them. Although Gaethje had the worst end of that, I wasn't the worst end of that. But I think, and like I say, everybody loves Gaethje. I think that even for what it worth gives him promotion too.
Yeah, it was definitely a memorable moment that'll go down in the history books of the UFC. Going back to Admire, as far as greatest moments of all time, you could probably put that up there, but I have to think about it being number one because you had some good moments. We have recency bias, but I agree with you, Admire. The magnitude of the event, kind of probably propels it a little bit more, but I don't know, just off the top of my head, as far as last second wins, that Yair Rodriguez against Zombie, wasn't that Zombie, Steve? That he did that against?
That was a crazy moment.
Wasn't Rodriguez down in that fight?
Yeah. Yeah, he was on his way to winning. He was on his Zombie was.
And got an elbow. So you could put that right there with it, but that wasn't on UFC 300. So I have to go back and look, but that was epic.
Yeah, but if you think about that, though, Zombie was winning that fight, and Zombie didn't say, let's just bang it out, like, completely. Like, I don't know, man. It might be recency bias, but it just, the way that I've seen a lot of fighters when they've dominated for 5 rounds, the last 30 seconds, they try to avoid getting hit, they avoid engaging. And Max, just like Steve said, Max was like, here, I'm going to give you a chance to just knock me out and get your highlight win, your come from behind win. I don't know, man. It was just, and like I said, not the greatest fight, not the greatest knockout, but just a moment that encompasses everything a fighter should be.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, it's epic. And we'll definitely go back and look at that as like, a pivotal moment when thinking back to this UFC 300. But let's go back and talk about something we were talking about earlier. This is more so on the loser side. Arman Tsarukyan, it looks like he would have the next shot at lightweight. You had Justin Gaethje just lose, so he pretty much just gave up his title shot by taking this risky fight. And like I said, nobody really saw this coming, so maybe Gaethje didn't see it coming. So you think that Sarukian, this was supposed to be, I guess, a de facto title eliminator match, and you put the winner of Sarukian Oliveira in there, but they announced that it's going to be Poirier versus Islam Makhachev. That's at 302, right? We were talking about this before you jumped on, Steve. That's at 302.
Yep.
So I don't know. I mean, do you think Sarukian is kind of foolish for not wanting to jump right back in there and just take the title shot? Because who knows what will happen in between now when Poirier and Islam fight. You never know if Conor looks good, they want to throw him right back into the mix. So should Sarukian have just sucked it up and try to get back in the training camp and take the fight?
I think he should stay healthy and be ready in case there's a pullout. If Conor wins, I mean, Conor's fighting Chandler at welterweight, so I don't think a win justifies giving him a lightweight title shot.
Yeah.
I think
we know, though, it's Conor still. If he wants a title shot at lightweight, he'll get it if he wins.
Right. It's still Conor, but I think the UFC themselves were waiting until the end of that fight to see if Gaethje won. If Gaethje won, I could have seen them giving him the Islam fight. But since he lost, I don't think they could justify it. So that's why they, throw Poirier in there and they announce it after. I think Sarukian should just stay ready in case anything happens to either Islam or Poirier. Sarukian should wait. I think he's ready for a shot. As far as Gaethje, he has, quite a few losses against the higher level guys. I don't think Gaethje is really ever going to be champ. I think Gaethje should take exciting fights. I think he's a big guy. I think he should explore maybe moving up to welterweight and just put on good fights. I am afraid for Gaethje. If you look at all the fights he's been in, most of them have been wars, back and forth slugging. Even his first fight in the UFC against Michael Johnson, and then he traded with Poirier, Eddie Alvarez. The Chandler fight was classic. Gaethje's taking a lot of damage, man. I don't know if he wants to continue. I mean, he's a warrior. He's going to. But in my mind, maybe Gaethje might be, think about slowing down.
Steve?
Yeah, I would think so, especially this late in his career with that nose injury. That's going to cause problems for the rest of his career. And I think they even talked about how he even got that fixed in the past in the commenting. I think if I remember, probably had a lot to do with that knockout, that broken nose. Like you say, he has a lot of miles on him, especially after this knockout. And it's like, it seems like not too long ago, Poirier got knocked out by him, but it seems like Dana tries to give these people a push when they're at the end of their career to get a champion. And I think Gaethje lost his opportunity. I mean, had the BMF belt, right? So at least he achieved something.
Yeah, that's not a real thing, though. I mean, Dana White's trying to make it, but it's still not a real belt. I get it,
It seems like Gaethje gets so close and then falls off. It's like Poirier too.
Yeah, him and Poirier were interim champions, so that's nothing to sneeze at. But I'm not even gonna go off and try to matchmake for Gaethje because he's my age. He's 35. He needs to take time off and actually heal from getting knocked out like that, or his next fight would probably definitely be his last fight, taking damage like that. So I say takes time to rest, assess what he wants to do next. I wouldn't be opposed to what Admire said. Maybe he'd go up to welterweight. He's a tweener, though. Like, he would have been perfect for that 165 division, which the UFC doesn't have. Yeah, just, rest up, go back to the drawing table, and maybe we'll see who he matches up with later. But as far as Holloway goes, looks like he has options at both. Like, I think he could, make his case to face Makhachev if he wanted to, or the fight that a lot of people want to see against him and Ilya Topuria. What y'all think Holloway's next step should be? Stay at lightweight or go back down to featherweight?
I think for me, featherweight is the move. Did you see Topuria's face? Like when they showed him, a lot of people are trying to say that the camera caught him off guard, but Topuria looked really scared after that fight. I mean, he did not look excited. Maybe they did catch him off guard, but I think Max is a company man and he's kind of earned the right to call his shot and just kind of do whatever he wants. If I was Max, I wouldn't really take a number one contenders fight, up there at the top of the lightweight division. I don't want to see Max against Oliveira, Sarukian, Dariush, anybody like that. I think if Max wants a lightweight shot, then wait and see how Sarukian plays out against Poirier or Makhachev, or just go straight in after Topuria.
Okay, Steve.
Yeah. After that, definitely he's got all the say to. He's got all bragging rights for the rest of the year for that moment, and I think he should go down and challenge. I wouldn't think. Well, Max might, if he times it right and waits, he might have some. It's a very shot in the dark. If Conor does good, he might claim some type of storyline with Conor.
Oh,
I like that. I like it.
I don't like that.
I do.
Nah, I don't like that. I don't think Conor would take it, but I don't think you should have Holloway fool around with Conor McGregor's foolishness right now, because I think he's still got some title potential. Throw Conor in there with a Diaz, because Diaz is what he is, but I don't want him mixed up with Holloway at this point. See if Holloway could get a title, and if he still fails, then I wouldn't be opposed to him and Conor. But like you said, they do have a storyline, even though that was light years ago. It was like 10 years ago that fight happened. But why do you like it so much, Admire?
It's got a history and some of the storyline behind it. I mean, it was earlier in McGregor's career. It was early in Max's career. They're two completely different fighters from where they were. You got to think they fought in 2013, 11 years ago. They've both gone on to be bigger fighters than that. I'm not sure where they were at on that card. Let me see if I can pull that up. But I think even back then, they were on the prelims. Think about that. Max Holloway and Conor McGregor on the prelim card fought over 10 years ago. To bring that back after, Max is still doing it, McGregor not so much, but Max brings the prestige of BMF title, what he just did. He's been at the top of the chain for a while. McGregor brings the star power, and just bringing all that together, that's a huge fight, man. That sells a lot of pay-per-views.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Like you said, key word, BMF. Hey, you can make any rule with that title. Who's gonna fight who, and who knows? Conor might go for that, even though he would go for the gold. If that doesn't work out, I can see Conor falling back on a BMF title just to make money. If Max Holloway, because Max Holloway is going to have to give it away.
Yeah. I'm with you, Admire. That would be as far as like star power and like a fight that everybody would pay for. That would probably break $1 million. But I'm looking at it from more so of a competitive standpoint. It doesn't really make sense. And if I'm Holloway, I was going to say a money fight will always be there, but you never know with Conor. He's an unpredictable fella, but I say go for the title first, and if that fight's there in 2 years or so, then try to go for Conor. Try to kill two birds with one stone. But
Yeah, and I mean, if Holloway went on to beat Poirier or whoever ends up our lightweight champ, and Poirier, or not Poirier, Max ends up having 2 titles, the BMF, the imaginary title, and a real title against Conor, 2 titles on the line in one fight, that could sell even more. So
yeah,
I see it both ways. Max gets paid very well to fight. He doesn't need red panty night. He doesn't need McGregor to make his money. But, maybe Max as a fighter says, this guy beat me 11 years ago. Let's do it. I don't know. I'm intrigued by it. I like it.
so yeah, he has options. That'd be interesting if they had a BMF and if he had a title on the line. But yeah, I say go for the title first, and then maybe try to go for that Conor fight if he's still even in the sport after Chandler. Who knows what Chandler's going to do to him? But yeah, definitely an entertaining moment. But let's get into this co-main event, fellas. In women's strawweight division, we had our champ Zhang Wei Li defeating Yan Zhao Nan by unanimous decision. All 3 of us had Wei Li winning this fight. So this was an interesting one because at the end of that first round, it appeared that Wei Li choked Zhao Nan unconscious. Looked like she was out. And there was some controversy. They were saying that they gave her smelling salts. I think Joe Rogan or Daniel Cormier misspoke like they always usually do and said it had some sniffing salts. But I think they said somebody in her corner just stuck their finger in her nose or something like that. But yeah, it could have maybe have called it at the end of the first round, but Wei Li went on to dominate the fight anyway. But what are your thoughts on that?
Man, I'm looking at the stats from this fight right now, and total strike wise, Wei Li landed 256 and Yan landed 73. But watching the fight, I thought that Yan did a lot better than what I expected. She landed a lot of big shots. She was the aggressor a lot of the fight. But I mean, Wei Li, pulled out more takedowns, submission attempts. That was crazy when, she choked her out. I thought they were going to call it there, but they didn't. I did hear what you were talking about. It was Joe Rogan that said smelling salts, and he kept saying it. Cormier came back and said, no, they didn't do that. The coach said, watch, I'll wake her up, and stuck his finger in her nose, all that. It was a good fight. This was kind of a, what do you expect coming off Gaethje and Max? Like, you just came off this crazy fight, and then, this one was a little more technical. It was a fine fight. I don't know if there's anybody really to challenge Wei Li, going forward, but it was good.
Steve?
Yeah, I thought the bath salt thing was whoever that bath salt thing was funny. Because people insinuate the worst and then you find out it's not. It's like the person that amps up the room and it doesn't need to be. So where I looked at that situation is Cormier always insinuating the worst to make the company look bad. Well, she gave her bath salts, and it turns out it was not bath salts to wake her up, and it turns out it wasn't that. So Cormier got to sit there and look dumb for insinuating something that didn't happen. I thought that was funny. I was like, man, that's a way to make your UFC look, or anybody in the company that wasn't doing, or in the corner that wasn't doing that. So I think Cormier be doing that sometimes. As far as Wei Li, yeah, she was. I think that Zhao Yin was up to par with Wei Li, but I think experience outdid her. Definitely that head choke.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, I think she had her out, but I think the rule with that is, and it sort of reminds you of the Michael Bisping, except his was the knee, and it happened at the end of the round. And if you can get back up to your corner, then you should be good as far as how the referees do it or the rules. If you can't make it up to your corner and have to be helped, then that's what I think it becomes a problem. And I think she got up fine to where I think she was consciously knocked out, didn't know where she was at. She's a beast, and I think she's going to be a problem in the future. But I think Wei Lee's veteranship got her through this fight.
So I guess I watched a different fight than from what you watched. I thought it was pretty dominant for Wei Lee. I don't know. I guess you saw it differently.
I think that Yan did better than I expected, better than what the odds said. I think she had good moments in that fight. I'm not saying that I think she won, not by any stretch of the imagination. I just think that she had a lot of good moments and she landed a lot of big strikes. And, she did land some takedowns. I think that the fight didn't go as one-sided as I thought. And I think there were spots where Wei Lee was, kind of in trouble getting hit.
I believe I think she was up to par with Wei Lee's skill level. I think Wei Lee had the little things like a specific moment I remember is where instead Joe Rogan says instead of turning with all your you have to do it in small spaces when you're on the bottom to get yourself back up. And she would make little mistakes in jiu-jitsu to where you're just going to get mounted if you skip steps. And I think that was the type of difference what Wei Lee was doing to her. She just had experience.
Yeah. So, Steve, you think Zhao Nan is going to make some noise in the future? Is that what you said?
I think so. I didn't think it was going to be this close of a fight, although I thought she was a problem, but she made it closer than what I thought she would.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this was a career make or break for Yao Nan, but she have to build herself up some more. And if they do a rematch, if somebody's still a champion, they need to, read the room and do that in China, and that would draw a lot of eyeballs and garner them a lot of money over there. But as far as Wei Lee goes, like, I'm not gonna go too in depth on what I think she's doing next because I think it's pretty obvious. It's got to be Tatiana Suarez, I think, because Tatiana is undefeated. Tatiana pulled out that fight. I think she was supposed to go against, was it Dern she's supposed to go against? It was a fight back in February. She's supposed to have a fight and she pulled out. She's supposed to go against Amanda Lemos. Yeah, let's get Amanda Lemos, but she pulled out. I don't know. She didn't really give a reason, but if she's healthy, I feel like you should just put her in there with Wei Lee, test Wei Lee's skill against a highly decorated wrestler like Tatiana Suarez. What say you, Admire?
Yeah, I think that's the only fight to make. Wei Lee's looked great, other than, the Rose fights. But I think Tatiana Suarez is going to bring that wrestling factor, and it's going to be a lot of ground fighting on that. And we're going to get to learn about, both of them. So I think that's the only fight to make. I think that's something that they should go ahead and try to get booked as well.
Definitely. But I don't know. I still think it's weird that Rose beat her twice and then decided to go up a higher division because I think Rose could give her another good fight and possibly win that title. But Rose says she's a flyweight now. But yeah, let's see what happens with Wei Lee. She looks pretty dominant as a champion. Let's see if she can keep that ball going. Let's get into this main event, fellas. In the light heavyweight division, we had champion Alex Pereira defeating Jamal Hill by KO in the first round. Admire had Pereira, and me and Steve had Jamal Hill. So in the beginning of this round and for most of that first round, both of the guys were kind of find their range and kind of strike from the outside. Not a whole lot going on. And then towards the end of the round, Hill kicked Pierre in the nuts. And Pierre told who was it? It was Herb Dean. He backed Herb Dean off, said, I'm still good. Went in there. I think he caught Hill with an uppercut, dropped him, finished him off a ground and pound. After he knocked him out, he like just pointed at him like, see, I told y'all, here's my work. And it was over. And Pierre made it look easy and was able to defend that light heavyweight championship. What were your thoughts on this one, Admire?
Yeah, so I downloaded the video of this one so I could watch it in slow motion to see exactly what happened. So Hill threw a left and Alex threw a right at the same time. And Hill was looking at Alex's right, and he came in with that left. He never saw it coming. Hard punch, man. I think they both look good throughout the filling out process. But Alex, he's so fast that I had to download it so I could run it in slow motion and just really see what happens because he threw that left so quick. Hats off to him. I hope, to see more Jamal Hill. He went through a lot of things, getting the belt, have to relinquish it, comes back and gets beat. So I'm excited to see where they both go from here. I'm sure after, we get through you guys, we'll talk about what's next for them because I have some predictions about what's next.
Steve, what were your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, man, which most of these fighters that fought Piero, they need to watch that lead hook, man, that shovel hook, man. They don't see it coming. It's like he'll get you bouncing around, and then when you think he's just bouncing and planning back, he'll come forward. And like you said, Hill didn't see it coming, and they're not lying. That punch makes his opponent's eyes roll back. And if you saw on the replay, his eyes rolled back. And you know what? I almost thought it was a reciprocating thing, but I thought he was about to get knocked out like Johnny Walker, the way his body was going. But it wasn't quite like that. But I was like, oh my goodness. And it was pretty devastating as far as for Jamal. I think one of his first knockouts. I think he'll come back and recover. You can maybe say that may have been ring rust from not being active. But like Admar said, I would like to see what the future is for Hill because I think he's still a good competitor.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, Pierre keeps proving me wrong. I mean, I picked Hill, but I knew Pierre had to knock out power to win. It wasn't a confident pick of Hill. It was more so of like coming from like a fan perspective and a fanboy perspective, thinking Hill might put a good comeback story after that Achilles injury. But I kind of had a gut feeling that Pierre would win. But the way he's been doing it, when up a division, he's still knocking light heavyweights out. So I guess the sky's the limit for Pierre, but we still hadn't really seen him tested on the ground. So I think that's still a question that needs to be answered as far as Pierre goes. But I'm going to kick it back to you, Emma. You say you have some ideas what happens next?
Yeah. So I think Pierre is now the UFC's golden boy with, for the higher weight classes with John Jones out and stuff like that. I think the UFC is going to do everything they can to protect him. And I think they're going to keep feeding him stand-up fighters. I think Jerry is probably going to get that fight, even though they just fought. I don't really want to see it. But if you look through the next guys, you have, Magomed Ankalaev that, is ranked number 2. I don't think they want to put him against Alex Pierre. He's going to take Alex down, and it's going to become a ground fight. Even Jan Blackhouse, he took Alex to a split decision, and there was a lot of ground fighting in that, and that's why he kind of got some of the judges' scorecards. Everybody else, Alexander Rakic that just fought on the card is a stand-up guy. I think they're going to keep throwing those type of stand-up guys at Alex. They're going to keep him away from wrestlers. The only other thing I could see other than Jerry is if they move Alex back down to middleweight and let him hold 2 belts at once.
There's a lot to unpack with that. I mean, I don't think it's set in stone, but you'd have to wait for DDP and Adesanya to happen, right? If he were to go back down to middleweight.
And I thought I heard that DDP had a fight set up, but I guess he doesn't.
Against who?
I thought he had a fight set up, but maybe he doesn't. And I mean, Alex is coming off pretty untouched out of that fight. Put Alex against DDP.
And y'all are forgetting his post-fight. He said he's trying to go up to heavyweight.
I was just gonna bring that up, Steve. That Amar didn't mention. Yeah, he said he wants to turn back around and go at 301 and fight at heavyweight too. So yeah, that plays in the into the story too, Amar.
I don't think he fares well at heavyweight. A lot of those guys are wrestling heavy. I think
Are they though?
He might pull it off with Aspinall.
Yeah.
If he get times it the right person. And
you got Curtis Blaze, who's a wrestler, and it may be some Europeans that I'm not thinking about, but besides
Alexander
Curtis Blaze,
Volkov, Sergey
Volkov is a
Pavlovich.
stand-up dude. Pavlovich is a knockout guy.
Oh, they got power, but they're both heavy wrestlers. They have wrestling.
I haven't seen Volkov really wrestle like that. Neither Pavlovich either. I'm thinking about it. Derek Lewis, he doesn't wrestle. Biggie Boy, he doesn't wrestle. If you want to, I don't know if you throw against a top 4 or 5 guy, but if he wants to do a fun fight next month, if he didn't take any damage, why not?
I don't know, man. It just, going from middleweight to heavyweight, we've seen it. I think Anthony Rumble Johnson did that. But I don't know, man. If one of these heavyweights gets a hold of Alex, even if they're not a wrestler, I think they would be able to take him down just because of the size, the weight, and everything. I'm not saying I don't want to see it. I think in my mind, if it happens, if he does go to heavyweight, throw him straight in against Tom Aspinall.
I mean, like Steve said, though, I mean, I wouldn't count Pierre out of it. That'd be stupid of sacrificing your contender like that if Pierre does win. I don't even know if I like him going down the middleweight. I say have DDP and Adesanya fight it out. Then, I mean, Pierre, you just fought. You could wait for a little bit. Have the winner come up to him. Why not do it that way instead of making him cut? So I heard there was a hard cut, weight cut for him going down the middleweight.
Or he could just get crazy, go up to heavyweight, win the belt, then drop to middleweight, be a three.
Well, hold up now, man. We still forget that John Jones is the champion up there. He's not beating John Jones. I'll go out and say that.
And that's where I think this heavyweight chance. That's where I'm not taking it serious what Pierre is saying unless he's thinking about fighting Tom Aspinall. I think he gets destroyed by John Jones.
Yeah, John Jones is, he's not Max Holloway. He's not gonna go out there and say, "Let's throw down." John Jones is gonna do what he does.
Right, but I mean, Aspinall's the interim champ. So if, say, Pierre goes up, beats Aspinall, becomes interim champ at heavyweight, drops back down to middleweight, picks up a belt there, maybe he could technically do it.
Could, but I think it's improbable. I mean, just to hold all 3 belts in general, that would be impressive. So if he eventually got the heavyweight belt, that would be pretty impressive to see. I mean, I just don't see the reward in Aspinall defending the interim title. I don't see what he gets out of that. I think he should wait, see what happens with Jones. I'm thinking Jones will probably be back for New York in November. Hopefully he gets that legal situation out of the way. I don't even know if anything happened to him legally. It's just a bad look in the public eye.
Yeah, I don't think anything happened. And there's no reward for Aspinall to take a Pierre fight. none whatsoever. But I mean, I think Piera, like I said, I think that's one of the new UFC poster boys.
I mean, they could just model him more so like an Anderson Silva type because it's a language barrier, obviously, but they could just let his fighting speak for itself and market him that way. So we'll see how they push him after this one, but definitely an action-packed night of fights. What do y'all think as far as like overall all-time UFC cards? Did it stack up to one of the top 5 UFC cards of all time?
In my opinion, yes. I mean, stacked top to bottom. Of course, they do that on the 100, 200, but I think a lot of the great finishes, Holloway, Gaethje, Piera coming up defending the title. It had everything a good card could want. I mean, it wasn't too many decisions. There was a lot of a mix of finishes. To me, it's definitely top 5.
Steve?
Definitely sticks in my mind memorably the Max Holloway, Gaethje, 2 known fighters, plus Jiri Prohaska, and the significance of those fights. I think events carry on the event they were. Certain moments carry what the event was on, and I think the significance of what they did, the knockout and the fight, is going to make me remember 300. So yes, it definitely was. I don't think the last 200 card was this stat, was this stat.
I have to go back and look. I think we all are prisoners of recency bias. I'd have to go back and look at some memorable UFC cards. There's been 300 of them. So definitely in the earlier years of UFC, the first 15 years, there were some good cards too. So I'm not going to be a prisoner in a moment and say this is top 5, even top 10. But as far as like this decade, you could definitely throw this definitely top 2, 3 this decade, the past 4 years, maybe even 10. I have to go back and think. But to be a prisoner moment and to rank this ahead of some cards that I may be forgetting off the top of my head, I just can't do that. I have to go back and think. But it was definitely memorable nights of fights. Like I said, a mix of finishes and highlight real moments, and top to bottom you had notable fighters. And what some people don't remember about some of those early cards, where you go back and look at them and like, oh, that was a banger. How did people not talk about this? A lot of times those fighters will be on the prelims, like Amar was saying, it'd be like a McGregor and Holloway on the prelims, and you really don't know that fighter at that time, and they make a name for themselves later. With this one, you pretty much knew all the fighters from top to bottom. People were packed in arenas for early prelim, which you don't see happen, even though that main event didn't have the sizzle like everybody thought it would. It still ended up, putting out a pretty exciting fight. So definitely be a memorable card. And I think probably after a year or two, we could go back and revisit it and see how it stacks up with all-time cards. And you were going to say something, am I?
Yeah, so I was going to throw in, a lot of times we talk about fighter pay, how it isn't enough. So I wanted to give just a little comparison, UFC 300 to 100, just to kind of see how it has actually progressed. So Brock Lesnar was the headliner of UFC 100, and he made $400,000.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Pereira, headliner of UFC 300, $2.9 million. So times have changed a little bit. But to go with what you were just talking, how it's kind of fun to go back and look at those cards, going back and looking at UFC 100, John Jones was on the prelims of UFC 100 and made $18,000 for his fight.
Who would have thought the guy making 18,000 would be one of the biggest fighters in the world, or greatest fighters ever? Definitely.
So yeah, I mean, Alex Pereira, Max Holloway, Justin Gaethje, and Zhang Weili, they all made over $2 million for this fight, which, UFC 100 days was unheard of.
Yeah, Definitely. I'd like to see something like UFC one fighter pay if they even still have that on record. I
It
bet
was
they got paid in bubblegum.
50,000 to the winner. That was UFC one. I think it was 50,000 to the winner. Nobody else got anything.
That's crazy. Fighting in there for nothing. Times have changed, like you said.
Yeah. And just for note, UFC 300 lowest paid fighter, Diego Lopez at $62,000.
Oh, really? That's crazy. Looks like they're getting paid a little bit more, but you know, for the big boxers that get paid, it's still peanuts. But you know, big note, it's actually an organization and not independent. They are independent contractors, but boxers could go about different promotions and jump back and forth. So
yeah. UFC 100 lowest paid fighter, Matt Grice, $7,000.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Times have changed, but it was definitely a action-packed night of fights. And we got UFC 301. I think is that from Brazil, isn't it? Admire.
Let's take a look here. UFC 301. We have that. Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, headlined by Pantoja and Ursig.
So we got that coming up this weekend. We got Ryan Garcia versus Devin Haney. So we got to talk about that too. The boxing show coming up in the near future. But that'll do it for us here at Haymaker Combat Sports. Make sure to follow us on all our social media platforms, including YouTube, Spotify, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. But until next time, be safe out there. Later.
Hit the takedown, ground and pound, that was from the top. Heel hooking, no more plot, I leave you in the knot. Pound for pound, been the greatest. Sitting on the top, man, I'm laughing at the fool.